Yesterday I found myself drifting away into memories of Bruges, a town where my grandparents used to live. I wrote down some thoughts here. We used to visit them regularly, and they were always very welcoming and warm. They used to live on the edge of the town in a row house, and on our visits we used to walk the streets of the city. We'd go to parks and stores, and we'd make memories like that. As I was a child, I didn't fully grasp the history of the town yet, but I will be reading some thoughts of Bruges. It always felt like a place out of time. As you follow along, you can be guided through the town or drift off to your own thoughts and adventures that you can have there, or in another town or another environment of your choosing. Bruges, with its cobblestone streets and winding canals, feels like stepping into a fairy tale. I can still picture the soft glow of the sun as it dipped behind medieval rooftops, casting long shadows on the water. Walking through the market square, the towering belfry seemed to watch over everything, timeless and serene. We climbed those 366 steps quite a few times, and when we got back down, we looked up to see the tower moving. When you stand at the base and you look straight up at the tower, the height combined with its narrow, pointed structure can distort your depth perception. Tall, straight objects like towers or skyscrapers can appear to lean or sway because our brains struggle to process the extreme verticality. We really appreciated this as kids. The scent of warm waffles and chocolate from the little shops lingered in the air, blending with the faint smell of brewing coffee from the corner cafes. Each turn down a narrow alley would reveal something new. An old, ivy-covered church, a quiet square, or a glimpse of a swan gliding through the canal. There's a certain stillness about Bruges, especially in the early morning or just as evening falls when tourists retreat and the city seems to belong to the past again. We would then wander along the canals, the Venice of the North, my grandmother sometimes called it. She would point out the graceful swans gliding past and share that they are considered the city's guardians. They were given as a gift centuries ago by the Holy Roman Emperor. I don't know if that's entirely true, but the sight of those majestic birds always made the canals feel even more enchanted. Shh, don't scare them, she'd say gently, though they were far too regal to be rattled by a curious child like me. And then there were the quiet afternoons we'd spent exploring Bruges museums. A favorite was the St. John's Hospital Museum, a curious blend of old-world charm and eerie quiet. Walking through the old hospital felt like stepping back into a world of quiet care and medieval healing. The hospital, with its origins dating back to the 12th century, was one of the oldest in Europe. I trailed my fingers along the worn bricks, imagining the sisters tending to the sick, the soft murmurs of prayer in the chapel. I heard stories of the old medical instruments, how people once believed that a bleeding cup could cure almost any ailment. It sounds absurd now, they'd say, but back then they saw it as a form of hope. That idea, the power of hope, stayed with me like a tiny light in my pocket that I could carry with me even when I left Bruges behind. The old brick walls, once bustling with nurses and monks tending to the sick, now stood silent, their history preserved in the artifacts and exhibits scattered throughout. I remember seeing the ancient medical instruments laid out carefully behind glass, each one a reminder of how far medicine has come since those early days. I found myself lingering in the chapel where the stained glass windows cast colorful light across the wooden pews, the sacred space used for centuries to pray for the health of patients had a profound sense of peace. Above, the stunning works of Hans Memling hung vibrant and rich with color, telling stories of faith and healing. His altarpiece of Saint Ursula, housed right there, is one of the museum's greatest treasures. The detail in his work was breathtaking. Each figure so lifelike, capturing moments of spiritual grace that complemented the hospital's role in caring for both the body and the soul. The museum didn't just tell the story of medicine, it told the story of Bruges itself, of a city that valued compassion, charity, and community. As I walked through the old wards, I imagined the patients who once lay there, hoping for recovery, and the sisters who dedicated their lives to their care. In those quiet moments, surrounded by centuries-old relics, I felt like the past was still alive, echoing through the halls in a way that was both haunting and humbling. Visiting St. John's Hospital wasn't just a glimpse in the history of medicine. It was a window into the heart of medieval Bruges, where faith and healing intertwined. I can still feel the quiet magic of those evenings in Bruges when the city took on a dreamlike quality. As dusk settled, the lamplights began to flicker on, their golden glow reflecting off the canal waters, transforming the entire town into a shimmering canvas of light and shadow. I'd walk along the canals, listening to the soft splash of the water against the stone banks, the occasional hum of a boat gliding past, and the gentle murmur of conversations from nearby cafes. There was something so calming about wandering without any particular destination, just letting the narrow streets guide me. The echo of footsteps on the cobblestones would sometimes be the only sound, broken only by the distant chime of the belfry's bells, marking the hour. I loved pausing on one of the old stone bridges, leaning over the side to watch the graceful swans glide below, so at peace in their ancient home. Every now and then I'd stumble upon a small courtyard or hidden garden where ivy crept up the walls and flowers bloomed in quiet corners untouched by time. In those moments, I'd imagine life in Bruges centuries ago. Traders on their way to the bustling markets, monks hurrying to prayer, the whispers of old lovers strolling by the canals. There was something about Bruges that made time feel fluid, like past and present were intertwined in a delicate dance. It wasn't just the sights that stayed with me, but the way the city made me feel. As if the world had slowed down just enough for me to truly breathe, to soak in every moment, and to savor the beauty of simply being there. As I wandered through the different marketplaces of Bruges, I couldn't help but feel the lively pulse of the city's history beneath my feet. The big market square with its grand belfry towering above is the heart of Bruges. Standing there, surrounded by colorful, gabled buildings, I imagined the centuries of trade that took place in this very square. The market was once the bustling center of commerce, where merchants from across Europe gathered to trade goods, from wool and textiles to spices and grains. You could almost hear the echoes of deals being made, horses clopping over the stones, and carts full of goods rumbling across the square. On market days, the square still comes alive, filled with stalls offering fresh produce, flowers, cheeses, and other local delicacies. The vibrant energy reminded me that while the city's medieval roots are ever present, Bruges is still a living, breathing place. I loved strolling through the stands, tasting the rich flavors of local cheeses and stopping to buy a bouquet of flowers, just as people have done for centuries. The smell of fresh bread and pastries from nearby bakeries added to the charm, mingling with the salty scent of frites and mussels being served at nearby restaurants. A short walk from the big market square is the Burg Square. That's the home of the Basilica of the Holy Blood and the Old Bruges Town Hall. The Burg has a more stately and serene feel compared to the bustle of the big market square. In the Middle Ages, this was a political and administrative hub of the city. The impressive Gothic architecture of the town hall reflects Bruges' former status as a powerful medieval trading city. I could picture the city officials deliberating inside its walls, making decisions that would impact Bruges' prosperity. I also found myself visiting the fish market, a beautiful covered arcade built in the early 19th century. Surrounded by stone columns, the market felt like a timeless space. Early in the mornings, you could see fishmongers setting up their stalls offering the day's freshest catch. The salt air mixed with the smell of the sea and the sight of fresh seafood brought the port city aspect of Bruges into focus. Even though the city's role as a major port diminished long ago, the fish market is a living connection to Bruges' maritime past. Each marketplace had its own rhythm, its own place in the city's story, whether it was the grand exchange at the great market square or the intimate local charm of the fish market. Walking through these spaces, I couldn't help but reflect on how these squares had been the lifeblood of Bruges for centuries. Places of trade, gathering, and community. Today, they can still carry that spirit. Imagining an ordinary day in the 16th century in Bruges for a regular person, I can almost feel the rhythm of life that must have flowed through the narrow streets and marketplaces. The day would begin likely at dawn with the sound of church bells echoing through the city, calling everyone to morning prayers. For the tradesman or artisan, waking early was essential, as the day's work had to begin as soon as the first light touched the cobblestone streets. A regular person, perhaps a weaver or a merchant, would rise from his bed in a modest home where the smell of fresh bread baking in a clay oven would fill the room, blending with the scent of wood smoke from the earth. The house would have been modest but practical, with wooden beams, a simple table, and stools arranged near the fire. A wife or servant might be stirring a pot of porridge or preparing a meal of bread, cheese, and ale. Breakfast was quick and simple, fuel for a day that would demand long hours of labor. For a woman of the same age, the day would already be unfolding with domestic duties like baking, spinning wool, or tending to the garden, if she was fortunate enough to have a small plot of land. Leaving the house, the streets of Bruges would be coming to life. The clatter of hoofs and the creaking of wooden carts would fill the air as farmers and traders made their way to the market squares. The smell of fresh fish, herbs, and smoked meats would mingle with the earthy scent of hay and the sharp metallic tang of the blacksmith's forge. For a merchant, the market was everything. He might have spent his day bargaining over wool, textures, or spices, working tirelessly to ensure a good deal to support his family. Bruges, being a major hub for trade at the time, was bustling with merchants, not just from nearby towns, but from all over Europe. Leaving the house, the streets of Bruges would be coming to life. The clatter of hoofs and the creaking of wooden carts would fill the air as farmers and traders made their way to the market squares. The smell of fresh fish, herbs, and smoked meats would mingle with the earthy scent of hay and the sharp metallic tang of the blacksmith's forge. For a merchant, the market was everything. He might have spent his day bargaining over wool, textiles, or spices, working tirelessly to ensure a good deal to support his family. Bruges, being a major hub for trade at the time, was bustling with merchants, not just from nearby towns, but from all over Europe. Italy, Spain, England. It was a crossroads of cultures, languages, and commerce. By midday, there would likely be a break for a simple meal, perhaps bread and stew, eaten quickly before returning to work. The marketplace would be busy with the sounds of haggling, while in workshops the constant rhythm of tools on wood or metal would continue as artisans honed their crafts. If the person worked in a guild, there would have been a strong sense of camaraderie and structure to the day, as guilds controlled not only the quality of work, but the social life of their members as well. For women, the afternoon might have been filled with managing the household, spinning thread, brewing ale, or preparing the evening meal. If children were grown, they might help their parents in trade or take on apprenticeships themselves. Life was deeply rooted in routine, but it was a routine tied to the cycles of the city and the seasons. As evening approached, the smell of roasting meat and cooking herbs would fill the air as families gathered around the fire to eat, discussing the day's work, the market prices, or local gossip. After supper, there might be time for a visit to the tavern or for some quiet contemplation. For the devout, a visit to the church for vespers was common, and the ever-present specter of religion shaped daily life in profound ways. As a middle-aged person in the 16th century, thoughts of family, faith, and mortality were constant companions. Life was harder then, and reaching middle age was an accomplishment. By the time the last light of day faded and the streets grew quiet, the day would end, much as it began, with the toll of the church bells and the crackling of the earth. A brief moment of warmth before slipping into sleep, ready to begin the cycle again with the next dawn. It was a life of hard work, deeply tied to the rhythms of trade, family, and faith. And though the days were full of toil, there was a certain simplicity to it. Every day, was a balance between survival and community, work and devotion, with Bruges and its marketplaces at the heart of it all. Now a little more about the architecture. The architecture of Bruges feels like stepping into a living time capsule where the past is vividly present in every brick and gable. Wandering through the streets, I can still see the iconic stepped gables that line the market square, their sharp outlines standing out against the sky, each one a distinct expression of the medieval pride that once filled the city. These gabled rooftops, often in bright shades of red and ochre, rise above the narrow winding streets, giving Bruges that unmistakable postcard-perfect charm. They tell the story of a prosperous city, one that was at its height a major trading hub in Europe. The Gothic style dominates much of Bruges, especially in its most important buildings. The towering belfry, with its intricate stonework and imposing height, is the centerpiece of the market square. Climbing its spiral staircase, I remember marveling at the view, thinking about the centuries it has stood there, watching over the city. Its pointed arches and narrow windows are classic hallmarks of Gothic architecture, meant to lift the eye and spirit upward, a reminder of both the grandeur and humility of medieval life. The Bruges Town Hall is another masterpiece of Gothic design. Its facade is adorned with delicate stone carvings, every statue and column telling the story of Bruges' civic pride. The pointed arches and ornate windows, crowned with intricate tracery, give the building an air of elegance and importance. It's easy to imagine city officials once gathering here beneath its vaulted ceilings, debating trade and politics in the shadow of these majestic walls. One of people's favorite architectural moments in Bruges is the Basilica of the Holy Blood, tucked away in the Burg Square. Its dark, almost somber Romanesque lower chapel contrasts with the vibrant, flamboyant Gothic upper chapel. Entering the upper chapel is like walking into a jewel box. Rich blues, reds, and golds cover every surface. The stained glass casting colorful light onto the stone floor. The contrast between the heavy, rounded arches of the Romanesque lower level and the soaring, pointed arches of the Gothic upper level speaks to Bruges' layered architectural history, from its more humble beginnings to its period of opulence. The canals of Bruges are lined with buildings that reflect the city's medieval past as well. Many homes and warehouses have that signature Flemish style, with stepped gables, red brick facades, and large windows. The homes of the wealthier merchants often have intricate stonework and carved wooden beams, proudly displaying their success. The reflection of these buildings in the canal water, with their symmetrical, sometimes imperfect lines, is one of Bruges' most charming and unforgettable images. Bruges is a city where every corner reveals a different era, from the Romanesque simplicity of its early churches to the Gothic grandeur of its civic buildings. The architecture tells the story of a city that has been both a thriving commercial powerhouse and a spiritual center. The preservation of these medieval structures, their slow decay halted by time and care, makes Bruges feel timeless, as though the past is always within reach, just a step away down the next cobblestone street. Every building, every brick and beam holds a memory of the city that was once one of the jewels of Europe. And even today, that brilliance still shines through. Visiting Bruges feels like stepping into a living piece of history, and there's something special about knowing that your presence in a city can help preserve its charm for generations to come. When I think back on my time there, I feel happy to talk about the city, but I also feel a sense of responsibility about this place that is so rich in heritage. So I think if I were to visit again, I would try to support the city by staying in a small hotel or bed and breakfast. Many of these charming places are tucked away in centuries-old buildings, and they offer not just a place to rest, but a way to immerse yourself in the local culture. Staying in such a place can help a smaller business and also keep the charm of these historic homes alive. Also, you might hear some stories of the city's past and get a deeper connection to Bruges that way. There are also marketplaces where you can find stalls that sell fresh produce, handmade goods, and local delicacies. That also gives the opportunity to buy from local vendors, whether it's a bouquet of flowers, a wedge of creamy Belgian cheese, or a piece of handcrafted lace. That way you can contribute to the city's living traditions. The lace shops, in particular, are part of a century-old craft that has deep roots in Bruges. Supporting these artisans helps preserve this intricate form of art that has been passed down through generations. So if you bring back lace from Bruges, it feels like carrying a piece of the city's history and craftsmanship with you. Bruges lace is delicate, intricate, and timeless, so it can make a special souvenir with many possibilities for use. For example, you can frame it as art. Lace from Bruges is a work of art in itself. Whether it's a larger piece or a series of smaller doilies, framing the lace can preserve it and turn it into a conversation piece. It's a beautiful way to showcase the craftsmanship and history of Bruges, and it can add a touch of elegance to your home. There are also table runners or linens. Lace is traditionally used in table settings, and a lace table runner or a set of lace doilies can transform a dining table or a coffee table. It adds a touch of sophistication to any meal or gathering. Pairing the lace with modern or rustic table settings can create a beautiful contrast between old world charm and contemporary style. You can incorporate it into fashion. If you enjoy sewing or customizing clothing, you can use the lace to embellish garments. Adding lace to the hem of a dress, around the neckline of a blouse, or as detailing on sleeves can create a vintage-inspired look that is unique. You could also sew it into scarves or handkerchiefs or accessories like headbands or gloves. The sky's the limit. It can also add to bridal or special occasion items. Lace from Bruges can be a sentimental and elegant addition to bridal attire. You could incorporate it also into a wedding dress veil, or even use it to wrap around the bridal bouquet. If you're planning a wedding, it's a way to bring a piece of your travels into the celebration. It could also be used for anniversary gifts or as part of a baby's christening gown. Another idea is to incorporate lace into home textiles like cushion covers, curtains, or bed linens. Adding lace accents to these items brings a sense of timeless beauty into your living space. Whether as an etched detail on pillowcases or as a decorative panel on curtains, it adds a soft, romantic touch to any room. Lace can also make excellent handmade gifts. If you're into crafting or DIY projects, you can use lace to create special handmade gifts for friends and family. Wrapping gifts with lace ribbons or incorporating lace into cards, journals, or decorative boxes adds a personal and thoughtful element. These gifts will carry the story of your time in Bruges and the history of lace itself. You can also accessorize with lace. Smaller pieces of lace can be used in everyday fashion accessories. You can turn lace into jewelry, such as lace earrings, brooches, or bracelets. By stiffening the lace with fabric glue and adding jewelry findings, these lace accessories would have a vintage feel, making them stand out as unique, elegant pieces. Another idea is lace-covered lampshades or light fixtures. For a creative twist, you can use lace to cover lampshades or wrap around light fixtures. When it's lit from behind, the intricate patterns of the lace will cast beautiful shadows, creating a warm, romantic ambience in the room. It's a simple DIY project that can bring a cozy vintage charm to your home. Another idea is you could do scrapbooking and memory books. If you like to preserve memories from your travels, you can use lace to decorate scrapbooks or photo albums. Lace trims can frame pages around photos or serve as decorative elements in a travel journal, reminding you of your time in Bruges. Each piece of lace from Bruges carries with it a rich tradition of craftsmanship. So whatever you choose to do with it, you'll be preserving and honoring a part of the city's history. Whether you use it for decor, fashion, or keepsakes, it's a beautiful way to continue your connection with Bruges long after you return home. Now, going back to other ways of supporting Bruges, you could of course be eating at local restaurants and cafes. You could try the delicious hearty Flemish stew, the crispness of the fresh fries, and the sweetness of the chocolate from small chocolatiers. Many of the city's eateries use locally sourced ingredients, and sitting in one of the little cafes, you can feel connected to the rhythms of Bruges' daily life. Supporting local cuisine not only boosts the economy, but also celebrates the cultural heritage of the region. If you'd like to delve even deeper, there are many ways to contribute to the preservation of Bruges' cultural sites. Visiting museums like the Groningen Museum or the St. John's Hospital Museum provides essential revenue to help maintain the city's historical treasures. Many of these museums also offer ways to donate to restoration projects or become members, ensuring that the art, architecture, and history of Bruges are cared for. An important aspect to the city might be that it is pretty low to sea level, so environmental sustainability could become more important towards the future. Renting a bike, taking a bus, or participating in a walking tour can also help this. Bruges is known for being a walkable city, and it's easy to explore its beauty on foot or by bike. That way you can cycle along the canals, take in the sights, and feel a closer connection to the city and its natural environment. Many tours led by local guides offer a personal perspective on Bruges' history and culture, which gives you a chance to directly support the people who know and love the city best. If you ever do visit, sharing stories, photos, and recommendations with friends and family can encourage more people to visit Bruges with the same appreciation and respect. The more visitors understand the importance of cherishing the culture, history, and local businesses, the more Bruges can remain the stunning jewel that it is today. Every visit to Bruges is a chance not only to experience its magic, but to ensure that this medieval gem continues to thrive economically, culturally, and environmentally for centuries to come. And that is what I really hope. And I will cherish my fond memories of this beautiful city and people I love that live there. Thank you for listening to this long-winded story. I hope you learned a few things, or that it served some purpose for you. And I hope that we can continue this long-winded story another day.